When a pope dies, the whole world stops. The news spreads like a sad whisper through millions of hearts. In the Vatican, all is silence, prayer, and tears. In the midst of this profound sadness, the Church remembers that Pope Francis was not just a leader. He was the vicar of Christ on earth, the shepherd who guided millions with tenderness and courage. The announcement of his departure is not hasty. It is made with all the solemnity deserved by one who gave his life to the love of God. Ancient protocols that speak of centuries of living faith are respected. The Cardinal Camerlengo approaches the body of Pope Francis and calls him 3 times by his baptismal name. When he receives no response, he confirms his death. Then he takes the fisherman's ring, a sign of his spiritual authority, and breaks it, as a visible gesture that his mission on earth has concluded. Thus begins a sacred time, the seed vacant. A world in prayer, one heart beating in Rome. The vacant see is a time of waiting filled with faith. Without a pope, but not without hope. During these days, the College of Cardinals watches over the Church while millions of hearts beat together in prayer. Pope Francis's body is prepared with immense love. He is clothed in his white cassock, his red cape, and his mitre, and tenderly carried to the chamber of tears. There, in the most sacred silence, the officials of the papal household keep vigil with devotion. The bells of St. Peter's resound in deep tones as his body is solemnly transferred to the basilica. The faithful kneel as he passes, and the streets are filled with silent prayer. There, before the altar, Pope Francis is laid out so that all may bid him farewell, thanking him for his dedication and his love. Have you ever felt like millions of souls beat as one heart? That's what happens when a pope departs for the Father's house. And what happens next is a miracle of unity, of living faith, and of love that the world will never forget. The Swiss Guard, their uniforms steeped in history, stand firm beside him, paying their final respects. Masses are celebrated where bishops, cardinals, and priests from around the world offer prayers asking God to receive Francis's soul into his eternal heart. The coffin, an act of faith in eternal life. At the express wish of Pope Francis, who requested that funeral rites be simplified, after the funeral mass in St. Peter's Square, his body was placed in a single, simple wooden coffin, abandoning the tradition of 3 coffins. Commemorative coins, a document about his life, and a pectoral cross, symbols of his humility and service, were placed inside. The bells toll, the prayers rise like incense. Day after day, the lines to see Pope Francis lengthen in St. Peter's Square. Families, the elderly, young people, and children wait patiently to approach and pray before his body. The Great Funeral Mass, a hymn of faith and love. Pope Francis's funeral mass is an ocean of prayer that embraces the entire world. St. Peter's Square overflows with pilgrims, heads of state, and ordinary faithful, all united in a single love. The Cardinal Dean presides over the celebration, recalling the luminous life of Pope Francis, his humility, his mercy, his passion for leading everyone to Jesus. Ancient hymns such as Laburum Me, Domini are sung, asking the angels to guide his soul to the promised paradise. How does humanity bid farewell to a man who gave his all as a pastor, as a father, as a witness of hope? What happens here is something that marks life forever. Procession and burial. The coffin was then carried in a solemn procession to the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore, where he was buried in an intimate ceremony, reflecting his commitment to simplicity and the liturgical reforms he himself promoted to emphasize faith and pastoral ministry over power. When Pope Francis's coffin lowers into the crypt and silence fills the air, it is not an empty silence. It is an invisible cry that says that love does not die, that Christ has conquered death, and that the Church lives on, unshaken. Before continuing, stop for a moment and think. What touched your heart the most in this video? Write in the comments what you learned and add, Jesus, guide my life as you guided the lives of your faithful shepherds. If this video is helping you, I invite you to subscribe to continue receiving stories that nourish the soul. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, please share it with love. What follows will transform you even more. The echo of the faith that never dies. In the days that follow, Rome remains enveloped in prayer. Suffrage masses are celebrated in every corner of the world. Faithful of all ages continue to arrive to leave flowers, rosaries, and letters at his graveside. Radio, television, and newspapers relive his words, his gestures, his immense legacy. And in every corner of the planet, hearts are ignited by the flame of love that Pope Francis kept alive. The legacy of a pastor who continues to guide. Pope Francis's tomb becomes a sanctuary of faith. Pilgrims from all over will come to ask for his intercession, to find solace, to renew their faith. If one day the Church canonizes him, his memory will shine even more brightly in the firmament of saints. A hymn that never ends. The death of Pope Francis is not the end. It is a vibrant proclamation of hope. It is the silent witness of a church that, even in sadness, sings that Christ lives and reigns. Even as tears flow, so does joy. Even as we feel the pain of his passing, we also feel the promise of meeting again. And although his body rests in the earth today, his spirit lives forever in the heart of God. And in the midst of this ongoing journey of faith, a luminous soul emerges who teaches us that even in the most difficult times, true joy is born from friendship with Jesus. Therefore, don't miss the next story. Saint Teresa of Avila, Jesus' joyful friend, who with her ardent heart and heavenly smile will show us how to continue loving, dreaming, and trusting in God, even when the world seems to darken. Come discover her.